A while back, I did a video on how lowering your expectations will actually make you happier, and I got a little bit of pushback from that. Some people said, "What are you talking about? I place high expectations on myself, and that's how you achieve excellence," and all these things. So I thought it would be fun to revisit that subject, talk about lowering expectations, and talk about how we shouldn't compare ourselves to anybody else. Let's talk about it. So I think there was a little bit of a misunderstanding from some people as to what I meant by eliminating expectations. I didn't mean that you shouldn't place expectations on yourself of things that are under your control. So you walk into a jiu-jitsu academy, you're on the mat, you expect that you're going to be a good training partner, you expect that you're going to give it your all, you expect that you're going to have a good attitude, you're not going to be a sore loser if you get tapped. Those things are perfectly good expectations because, again, they are under your control. What I was trying to say is that you shouldn't place expectations that are not under your control. And in a jiu-jitsu context on the mat, you don't have full control over how well you're going to do. Why? Because we're pitting our skill against each other in a direct way. And sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail, and you can't always control that. It's when you walk into that and you think, I'm not gonna get tapped tonight, or I'm gonna tap everybody tonight, or tonight I'm gonna be playing only offense, I'm not gonna defend tonight. And then those things don't happen. Now you are feeling bad about yourself. The example I gave in that other video was, I gave a few examples. One was, you go to a restaurant and you get slow service, you get a mediocre meal. Well, if you had expectations of good service and a good meal, and maybe rightfully so, within the context of someone we're doing business with, it's perfectly appropriate to have an expectation. My only point was that the reason you're upset was because of the unmet expectation. If you simply walk into the restaurant with a spirit of gratitude, you're just happy to be there, you're just happy to get a meal, then you eliminate anything that's going to cause you to be upset over that experience. Or let's say someone cuts you off in the car on the freeway. If you get mad and shake your fist at them, it's because you expected those around you to drive in a certain way. Again, I'm not saying you shouldn't have those expectations. I'm simply making the point that if you're upset, it's because you had an expectation and it wasn't met. On the other hand, if you have no expectations of those around you, they can cut you off and you feel nothing. Maybe you even feel amused by that. Or let's say you go over to your girlfriend's house and you forget that it's your anniversary of when you met, and now she's upset, right? She had an expectation of you. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, but it's the expectation that causes you to not feel good or caused her to be unhappy. So whenever I am training jiu-jitsu, I only place expectations on myself in terms of things that I can control. I don't place expectations of performance, expectations, or I should say expectations of result, because the result is not fully under my control. I also said you shouldn't compare yourself to anyone else on the mat, and that's hard to do. Admittedly, that's very hard to do because we are actually sparring in a direct, non-choreographed way. You're trying to choke me out, I'm trying to choke you out. And if I lose, if you dominate me, if you get the better of me, well, there's a comparison there. And it's very, very easy to make those comparisons. Ultimately, you are only in competition with yourself. You are not in competition with anybody else. We all come in different shapes and sizes, different levels of physical attributes. You know, maybe you can only train twice a week and you're comparing yourself to the kid that's training 6 days a week. That's an invalid comparison. At the end of the day, you can only compare yourself to the old you. Are you a blue belt in comparison to the white belt you? Are you a purple belt in comparison to the blue belt you? That's the only metric that matters. And if you focus on that, what John Danaher calls having a growth mindset. You don't want to have a result mindset where if you don't get the result, now you're unhappy. What you need is a growth mindset in which you're simply getting better each day and you're happy because today you improved. And look, I understand. You go to class night in and night out, and sometimes it feels like we're waging the same battles over and over. It doesn't always feel like you're progressing. A lot of times on this journey, it doesn't feel like you're getting any better at all. But I promise you, you are. I promise you, you are. Brian Eno, the great music producer, produced all the U2 albums and a lot of other things. He likes to say that repetition is a form of change. And I agree with that. Repetition is a form of change. Coming to class and waging the same battles over and over and over is a form of progress. Why? Because you're never going to solve those problems until you have been confronted with that problem over and over and over again so that you can begin seeing what led to you getting in those bad situations in the first place. You start to recognize the patterns that led to the result, and then you can start adjusting. But sometimes it takes a while. This is a dynamic art where things happen fast. It takes a while. So develop a growth mindset. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. And look, we are all susceptible to that. I'm susceptible to that. Just because you're a black belt doesn't mean that you're not going to be susceptible to that. I had that experience recently. I sold my school in Wyoming, which I ran for 5 years. And up in that environment, it's a small college town in Wyoming, I was top dog. As a result of being top dog, because the skill level wasn't incredibly high in the school, you know, it's easy to have a lazy game. It's easy to allow submissions to get sunk real deep because there's always a solution to get out. But I moved here to Southern California to Coachella. Coachella VJJ is where I'm training, and you walk into that room and I don't know how many black belts train there, probably 30. I mean, there are a ton of black belts and a lot of them are incredibly skilled. Very, very skilled guys. They have everything. They have the physical attributes, they have the mental attributes, they have the technical skill, and it goes on down from there. Lots of brown belts, purple belts, even the blue belts are a nightmare in that environment. So I walked in, used to kind of playing my lazy old man game, and I realized real fast that that's not gonna work, and I had my ass handed to me. And that went on for a few weeks. I'm starting to feel pretty good about my game now. I'm starting to get in shape. I'm starting to, understand the dynamic at play here. But I walked out of that gym a few times not feeling super great about my game. I'm not gonna quit. I don't have that quitting instinct, and I've been doing this long enough that I understand on an intellectual level, I understand that ultimately the only comparison I can make is with me versus the old me, and I'm gonna get a lot better in this environment. I guarantee after a year here, I will be able to destroy the me that showed up a year earlier. So you gotta just keep showing up, have a growth mindset, eliminate all expectations. Eliminate all expectations. Throughout our life, there are always opportunities to recalibrate those expectations, and I think you will ultimately be a happier person. Jiu-jitsu is a long journey. You don't want to be on a roller coaster. Imagine having to go from New York to Los Angeles, but you have to do it on a roller coaster. That would be fun for about a minute and a half, and then you'd be like, get me the hell off of this thing, right? What you want is a nice, even road. You don't want big hills, you don't want big valleys. A nice, smooth road. That's the journey you want. And you do that by not comparing yourself to anybody else. You do that by lowering your expectations. You do that by having a spirit of gratitude. Every day when I walk off the mat, the first thing I think is, thank you, I didn't get hurt. I do that every time I train. So gratitude and a growth mindset, a mindset in which it's the small victories, the little improvements that are incredibly valuable. So I hope that helps you on your journey. And for those of you that misunderstood what I said in that video, I hope that clarifies, because I truly do think that expectations are the root of a lot of unhappiness in our life. Talk to you next time.